Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well today. So today I have another sewing project video for you guys, and I'm actually currently wearing that project. This is a dress that I just finished yesterday and I am so excited about. It's kind of like cottagecore meets 1970s. That was the inspiration that I had for this dress, and I really love how it turned out. It's this beautiful floral fabric that I found for a really good price on fabric.com, so I will link to that down below. And I also used some crocheted lace detailing, which I think looks so pretty, so I'm really excited with how it went. I used the by hand London Tamsin dress pattern to make this, but I made a couple of alterations that I will go over as we go throughout the process in this video, but I really hope you guys enjoy seeing how it came together. Today's lighting is a little bit weird, so please excuse me. It's getting dark much earlier, so I need to adjust my schedule for that, but I thought I would just roll with it today and go ahead and film, and I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into the sewing. Hey guys, editor Lauren jumping in here to let you know that I accidentally deleted the part of this video where I cut the dress out, so that clip is missing here. The only thing that I did differently from the pattern when I cut the dress out was to make the skirt just a little bit shorter, because I wanted to eliminate one of the 3 tucks in the skirt, and you'll see that on later in the video, but just be aware that's what's happening here. But I am following the pattern with the cutting out for the most part. I'm sorry about that. I don't know how I deleted it, but technical difficulties, we'll keep moving on. So the first part of this dress I'm going to tackle is the neckline facing, and the first thing I'm going to do here is attach some fusible interfacing to both the front and back neckline facing pieces. This just makes them a little bit easier to manage throughout the whole dressmaking process. So I've cut out pieces of fusible interfacing that match to the facing pieces, and I am ironing that on. And then I'm just going to pin together the facings at the shoulder seams and stitch those down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, I'm going to make the ties, and I've chosen to do the front tie option for this dress, so I'm just pinning my tie pieces together with the right sides together, and then I will stitch all the way down my ties off into a point to make this nice finished edge when I turn it to the right side. So with those 2 kind of preparatory steps out of the way, I can start constructing my bodice. And first I'm going to stitch together all of the bodice back pieces. There are 3 pieces here, a center and then a left and right side. So I'm going to stitch those down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and then serge off any excess fabric. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the front 3 bodice pieces, but I'm also going to make sure to sandwich my ties between the left and right and center pieces here. So I'm measuring up 5/8 of an inch from the bottom of the bodice and pinning my ties towards the inside of the bodice here. Then I'll just layer the other bodice piece over top and stitch this all together with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and serging off the edge. I'm just going to give the bodice seams a quick press to make sure everything is looking really nice and neat. Now with our bodice front and back pieces constructed, I can go ahead and sew them together at the shoulders. So I'm going to match up the shoulder seams with the right sides together and stitch these seams with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and finish the edge off with the serger. So now we're going to work again with that facing piece from the beginning of the project, and I'm just going to fold this in 5/8 of an inch all the way around because this facing will be pressed to the outside of the dress. So you want to make sure that outer edge is really nice and neat. I ran a row of stitching around the edge as a folding guide, so you can do that as well if you want to. Then I'm going to pin this to my dress with the right side of the facing towards the wrong side of the dress, pinning this all the way around and then stitching it down with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, I just clipped the corners and curves of the neckline so that this would turn towards the inside really nice and neatly, and then turned it towards the outside to press it down. Next, I'm just going to top stitch all the way around the outside of the neckline facing to make it look really nice and neat and secure it to the outside of the bodice. Now, very sadly, after I had done this, I was pressing the neckline and accidentally had my iron on the wrong setting and scorched my neckline facing. Thankfully, it was a really small spot, but I went ahead and ripped all of this out and completely redid the neckline facing. I thought I would just show this to you guys because there are definitely setbacks every time I make a project, and this did take me quite a while to correct, but it wasn't so bad in the end. So after sewing my neckline facing for the second time, I could move on to my side seams. So I just matched up the side seams of the dress with the right sides together and stitched these down and also serged the edge. My bodice all put together, I could move on to these super fun sleeves. And the first step of making these sleeves was really unique to me. I hadn't seen anything like this before, but since they have tucks, the pattern guide recommended that you press along the line where the tucks will be folded, just to make that really easy to find when you are actually putting those in after you've sewn the side seam. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm just going to match up the side seams of my sleeve and stitch that down and also finish off the edge. So you can see here as I'm folding up my tucks, it does that really easily because I already went ahead and pressed that line before. So I'm just going to stitch along each fold with a 1-inch seam allowance to make the tucks, and there are 3 for each sleeve. I'm also going to go ahead and hem my sleeves while I'm at it. They also had a guide for pressing up the hem before you sewed the side seam, so I did that as well and went ahead and hemmed my sleeves with a double folded hem. While I was at the machine with the sleeve, I went ahead and also added the gathering stitches to the top of the sleeve because this does gather just a little bit, so I ran 2 rows of gathering stitches around the top of my sleeve. Now, because massive floral bell sleeves with tucks were not enough for me, I cut a piece of lace to fit around the edge of the sleeve and then stitched this into a loop using a zigzag stitch. And then I just pinned this all the way around the bottom of the sleeve and top stitched that down. I have the inside of the lace towards the inside of the sleeve so that the sleeve overlaps the lace. With the sleeves assembled, I went ahead and adjusted the gathers to fit to the armhole and pinned this into the armhole and secured it in place with a straight stitch, and also finished off the edge with the serger once I had double checked to make sure I hadn't stitched anything weird with all of those gathers and everything looked good. So moving on to the skirt now, the first step with the skirt is actually the same thing we did with the sleeves, folding it along the tuck lines and pressing those folds in place. Now I decided to eliminate one of the tucks from my skirt because I just thought it would be too much with the lace I was adding, so I did just make 2 of these. And then once those folds were folded in place, I could pin up my side seams and go ahead and stitch these down. After sewing the side seams, I went ahead and sewed the tucks just like I did on the sleeves, this time though with a 1.5 inch seam allowance instead of a 1 inch. So they're a little bit wider than the tucks on the sleeves. I knew I wanted to add some of this crocheted lace to the skirt as well, so I made a loop of lace that fit around the skirt, and I'm just pinning this on a little bit above the 2 tucks, a few inches above that. I think it looks really nice with this placement, and I went ahead and sewed this down with a straight stitch on either side of the lace. Sometimes I use a zigzag stitch to secure lace, but I thought this was a little bit more invisible with this particular lace, so I used a straight stitch and it worked out really well. And while I was at the sewing machine, I did go ahead and add my gathering stitches to the top of the skirt, 2 rows. I like to do 1/4 of an inch and then 5/8 of an inch for seam allowances on my gathering stitches. Next, I'm just going to adjust the gathers to fit to the bodice, and then I will pin the skirt to the bodice with the right sides together and stitch all the way around the waistline seam with a straight stitch. After that, I will serge it off with the serger. This point in making the dress, I went ahead and tried it on to check where I wanted my hemline, and I did fold up the hem off of camera, so you won't see that on here, but it was just a very simple double folded hem. And then I decided I wanted to add lace to the bottom of my dress, so I made 2 loops of these 2 different laces. One is the one from the bodice of the dress and the other from the skirt, and I'm going to combine these together on my sewing machine to make one wider lace. So all I'm doing here is pinning the 2 loops together all the way around, and I will just sew this down with a straight stitch. Again, sometimes I would use a zigzag stitch for this, but I just felt like you could see it a lot less on this particular style of lace with a straight stitch, so that's what I did here. Then to attach the lace to the skirt, I'm just pinning it on over where I folded up the hem. So when I sew this on, I will also be hemming the dress at the same time. It will just be 1 row of stitching to both attach the lace and hem the dress. And then after I sewed this lace on, this dress was done. So here is a look at how the dress turned out. I love it so much because it is just very, very comfortable to wear. It's this really loose fit, but the ties give it a nice fitted waist that you can adjust yourself. So it would be a really forgiving one if you are new to sewing and are unsure of fitting. I would really recommend this pattern. It's a really beautiful one to sew. And I love this flowy rayon fabric so much. I couldn't believe I found such a great floral print for such a good price. I love it so much. So I definitely will be wearing this one a lot. Alright guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it and enjoyed seeing how the dress came together. I'm really, really happy with this dress. I like it so, so much. It's so, so comfortable also because it's really loose and you just tie the waist to fit. So I really like that about it. I definitely want to make this pattern again, maybe in a solid color or something like that. It was so fun to make and I really like this style. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you're not already subscribed to my channel and you would like to be, I would love for you to go ahead and do that now by clicking the red button down below, and that will let you stay tuned for my future videos. I post a lot of sewing content, so if you're interested in that, there's a lot more headed your way. But thank you guys again so much for hanging out on my channel today, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye!